Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is how I rebuild a mini bike. Welcome to my head, the 14cc version anyway. This one is lightly ported on the intake and exhaust. It already has stainless valves lapped into it, and it's been run, so I know it works. I have billet retainers with the split keeps. I'm trying to decide which springs to run. I think that 22s are going to be too stiff. We don't want to promote too much. They are on a stock rod. We're running a stock cam as well. So that doesn't rule out the 18s. When you go with like a 265 cam or something, or you change your rockers, which we're not, well, we are, but we're not, then you increase the chances of coil bind. I don't think we're going to have that problem, so we're probably going to run these. The ones that I pulled out were right here, and I believe those were 15 pound. This is a stock spring. Alright, that stock spring is taller than whatever that is. Call it the 15. Here are 26s, fresh. Alright. These are all pretty much fresh springs. Those 18s have only seen maybe an hour runtime. Plus they're genuine Honda. That's why I'm leaning towards those. 26. Heavier coils, shorter than stock. Whatever that is, call it the 15 again. It's shorter than a 26. I'm thinking these are meant to be shimmed up, and in doing so, it would preload and increase the pressure even more. I don't know what it would go if these are indeed, like I keep saying, 15s, and you add one of these. I don't know the math of what, they would go up to. All I know is I'm running stock seats, and I'm keeping that intake seal on there. They didn't fall out when I ran them last time, but I don't know. What are your chance? Going up 3 pounds and possible coil bind, or going down and possibly dropping a valve. You'd have to hit the RPM and really make them dance, though. It was not difficult to remove these retainers and keeps, which is odd because even with 22s, after being run, these can be a little bit of work to get out. Sometimes you need a spring compressor. Yeah, I just talked myself into it, I think. Let's kick it with the 18s. If I were to change the ratio of the rockers, then I could have a negative impact on the 18-pound springs. Instead of changing the ratio or anything, I'm just replacing them with a set that came out of a genuine Honda. The steel looks a little better and feels a little bit stronger. Even though I know my piston is plenty far in the hole, you want to double check the thickness of your head gasket before you install your head. I just cleaned this thing off. It's got a few drops of water left on it. My high performance lash caps are there. She's ready to go. I'll get my two dowels in place, set the gasket on, and then the head. I'm just going to run the factory bolts, as in the ones that came off of the 196. Unless I have some Honda ones. I'll check real quick, but I don't think I do. They're probably already on a different engine. Wicked sweet! I found a set of those bolts. I'm going to install these in a similar fashion to my side cover bolts. They're going to get a little bit of the red thread lock on the last, say, third of these threads. So up here they'll just get a couple drops. I'll bring them in with an extension and my socket just till they're snug. Then I'll switch to my torque wrench and I'll do the alternating thing again. That way I'm bringing it home as flush as possible. I torqued my head bolts to 18 foot-pounds. I then just turned my rockers to the side and dropped in the factory 196 push rods. Typically, I lash my valves at 0.0015. My feeler gauge has seen better days, and I'm not getting an accurate reading. It's actually going more toward the 000 mark or smaller, and when you get to those increments and you're trying to find your top dead center, it's got to be dead on if you run stupid close. So like if you go 0, then you better have your TDC right where it's at. This is a little bit safer, going the I don't even know where it just disappeared. It's in thin air now. Going the 0.0015, there it is safer than going 0. What I do is I hug the exhaust up a little bit snugger than the intake. Since that feeler gauge wasn't up to the task, I just went with the 0.0025. I didn't have a 0.0020. So that's what we got. It seems to be rolling over well and finding its top dead center, like that's not right there. Come around. Alright, so I'm coming off. That's good. That means both valves are closed. Swish. This modified coil just came off of the closest engine next to me that had one. I think the wire is going to be long enough. It's like that much shorter. We're going to be running a linkage across to our butterfly. Or actually, it's going to go from the linkage to the butterfly this time. So, yeah, that ought to work. I'm going to get one business card in there as a gauge, and then I'll clamp this sucker down. It's just 2 8mm bolts. Perfect. All right. Carburetor, sheet metal, and a valve cover. This rebuild kit came with a spark plug. Yep, we don't have to index it. It's one of those 390 10x ones. What do I want to do first? I think I'm going to put the gas tank. We're going to have a fuel line coming through. Sheet metal. Carburetor. Carburetor it is. Let me see what I got. I dropped the bowl off the factory carburetor that was on this 196 just to see what kind of jet they were running. This did have a open air filter. What do you think? I don't know if they snapped the head off of it or if that's just some sort of EPA meddling. Probably snapped the head off of it. It's useless. It's non-adjustable anyway. I'm going to go with a Tillotson PK3A. They're nice little carburetors. I'm just looking for the right jet. And I think I found it. I don't know, you guys could try to get that in focus. That's not too bad right there. Number 36, according to this little jet kit that I have. See what happens. I think it's going to be pretty close. I modified cam 196. I want to say I would run like a 37 or a 38 jet, 35 or 36 for your governor removed. We have advanced timing, improved spark, better compression. We might go under at 35, so that's how I deduced that 36 is going to be the magic number. Oof. That wasn't good. This is the air filter that was on this mini bike when I bought it. This engine, to be exact. Yeah. So, that's why I rebuild them. That way they're to my liking. I'm not going to use much from the prior setup. I have like new stuff. So, billet adapter with the carb, I don't know, stay down. It's not really a mount because it doesn't mount to that. It mounts to the carburetor and it just holds it down. Anyways, that one was on backwards, so it didn't even stand a chance. Fresh gaskets, different insulator, and the actual choke lever. There's a fresh bowl gasket on the carb. I didn't put this piece on yet because I have to see how this linkage is going to go. I'm starting to wish I didn't have to include the tank. I really don't have to. There's nothing forcing me to. And this bike really isn't going to leave the yard, so we might go remote on that. It'd be kind of cool to have this linkage and stuff hooked up and be able to see it and not have it crowded and, you know, stuck under the tank at all. We don't have the little governor spring, but we will have the throttle rod and one of the thicker of the two springs. That one will be going over to the stock linkage, and then from there it goes. Our throttle pulls from this linkage, it pulls this one, and then that one hits the butterfly. You feel me? You will, don't worry. Well, now, that could have something to do with the terrible throttle that this had on it. I don't know how those springs would have returned it. This nut is so tight that it's impinging the two plastic washers that are meant to, you know, loosely touch this thing on both sides. Just kind of keep it remotely in the middle between the two of them. They use a nylock or some form of a lock nut on these so that you can back them off a couple threads or just not send them home in the first place. The speed limiting screw, engine speed limiting, it's welded on there. It's all the way. That wouldn't have been very fun. See if I can't hem that off somehow. I want to leave this tab, but just take the threads, basically. The head can stay welded right there. Bum deal. This coil wire isn't going to work, and I don't have a long enough piece to make one that will. This thing fired right up stock, so for now I'll just run with that and keep it simple. I mean, it looks stock, and this is technically a governed linkage. I'm just going to hook it up to run without a governor. Get it out of this package and show you what I'm working with. I absolutely love these linkages. They come pre-assembled. There is a solid rod that connects here instead of a cable. So we can go ahead and remove this throttle cable stay. The kit comes with a little bag of hardware. Half of it is for the throttle cable itself, and the rest is to mount the actual linkage on the engine. I'm going to remove these two 8mm bolts and this little cable cuff thing so that it mounts up flush. I'll just yank that out with some pliers. My engine only has 2 threaded holes. The middle one is not. I could remove the fan shroud with the starter, stick this through, and then put a nylock nut on the end. The only problem there is that if the starter fails, I would have to remove the entire fan shroud to work on it. So we're just going to rock with those 2 and call it good. I was able to pull this mechanism back and flex the rod to get it through that cable stop. It worked brilliantly. I didn't have to remove the whole linkage and feed the rod through first, though I could have done that as well. Now that it's through, we're going to go ahead and tighten the screw. Obviously that'll keep the rod from coming out, and now when we work this mechanism, it pulls on that one, which works off of this one that goes to our butterfly. Notice we're not coming back to idle, so our throttle isn't closing. Where I'm not running the governor, we're going to need a return spring. Something pulling this arm in that direction will be suffice. We're going to keep this nice and simple. I just used a factory governor spring back here to pull the arm. We don't want a return spring that is stiffer than that. If we do that, then we'll pull the throttle and it'll stretch that spring before it pulls this arm. We could go rigid with a bent piece of coat hanger there, but I think it's going to be easier to just incorporate a second spring. That should also help make the throttle feel nice. At least make it seem like you have a little more control. These butterflies don't move far. It's not like a slide carburetor. That's why I believe you use springs instead of solid rods all the time. It gives you the feel that there's more there than there really is. Here's what I'm working with. I have another one of those stock governor springs. Right now, it's the same tension as that one. So if I attached it parallel this way, then I should be able to pull this and it'll have the same draw back that it has in that direction. So it'll still be able to activate. Thing is, it's too long. So, could I mount it at this hole over here and then go back to there? No. It stretches the spring too much, which adds preload. It makes this too stiff. Let me try to show you. If I stick the spring in that hole and I bring it back, here, I'll just go right around the cowling here, the fan shroud. Okay, you see how the spring is already stretched? when we try to pull this, there is too much tension pulling back in the other direction, so it doesn't work. What I'm wondering is if I add some zip ties to this spring, can I make it rigid enough to pull on that spring? It's not going to be quite that tight when it's mounted to the bolt, but that's what I'm up against. I'm going to do the zip tie mod there, and I'll add my 8mm bolt and get a little bit of tension off that spring. See if it works. Here we go. I have one zip tie wrapped around that spring, and the other one is now attached with the 8mm bolt. I had it hooked around this fan shroud before. I'd say it came back about 1/4 inch. That took a lot of that preload tension out. Now, when I pull this mechanism, the butterfly moves, but it also goes to a full return. This is 100% going to work. I'm going to try to clean up that zip tie, and then I think I can install my air filter. I just lubed up a clean filter. We now have a billet adapter with the choke holder and everything. I'm moving on to the valve cover from here. I'm going to use an extension with a barb that'll receive a line that comes from the side cover, and then we have to vent the air out. So this vents our block pressure up to the head. We have a galley hole. It's bored out, so the oil that goes with it has a better chance of returning back down to the bottom of the block. While that's going on, we still need a relief. I'm using the factory baffle that is in this valve cover. I just hijacked it with a hose that fits, sleeved in a hose that works for me, and then tossed a filter on the end. I used longer bolts with lock washers and a rubber gasket. The rubber gasket I got off of a 212R. OMB Warehouse has those. You can buy those as well. So it goes rubber, billet adapter, cork, and then the stock valve cover. I'll keep this line vertical. I'll attach it to the frame somehow. You might have to extend it. We'll see how it sits in there. I pulled out the spark plug. I'm going to add oil to the engine and give it a few pulls. Before I put this on, I was sure to squirt some oil all over my rockers and valves the best I could. You can't really get the actual valve, but you get the ends of them. This barb is holding fine, but I'll throw a hose clamp on it just so it matches. We're going to leave the tank off. Oh, and I'm going to toss a new exhaust gasket on. I'm not sure what I have for headers to fit this, but I know At least I hope. I have something better than this. I don't know if I can cut this short and get a silencer on it. Same as that line. It's going to be a fitment thing, so we'll see when we get there. It's actually 10W30. It's in this container. I just transferred from here into there so that I could see how many fluid ounces I had. I'm running about 18. The stock recommendation is right around 20. We remove the governor. We have stiffer valve springs. We're going to create more RPM and internal pressure. Even though we're relieving it, we don't want too much of it. Okay? I'm not going to add zinc right now. I will after this run. We'll probably go about 2 or 3 hours and then do an oil change. I'll go back with some fresh 10W30 and a small cap full of ZDDP. I'd consider this workbench fairly level, especially compared to most mini bike frames sitting on the ground. Give it a little shakety shake. We are just about up to the last couple threads there. Any more and I would have had to have tipped the block back to even fill it. There was a little bit of residual in here from when I assembled the engine, squirted my valves. That would have leaked down through the galley hole and made its way down to the bottom. So there's that. So I'm probably, maybe 18.5 ounces. But hey, I'm already there. I'm going to clean this off, close her up, and then I think I already have the spark plug pulled still. Yep. Alright. After that, I'm going to pull it probably 25, 30 times. It's really hard to get an angle of me pulling this thing. I did it a couple dozen times without the spark plug. That slings oil around. It gets it to a few places it needs to be. I lubricated my rings, my cylinder, my valves. Everything that moves in here got lubrication, so nothing's dry, including my journals on the piston, the crank, the cam, everything, bearings. So I pull easy. I'm not trying to start it. I'm just trying to cycle the engine and make sure that all of the rotational parts are working properly. I then add the spark plug. I tighten it. I don't put the cap on. We don't actually want to feed a spark. We're just trying to build compression. I then pull it again. Nice and easy. Probably about 6 or 8 times. And what I'm checking is my valve lash at that point. If my valve lash was off, then there's a good chance that that compression, even without fire, could cause it to be hard to pull. We'll leave it at that. It could sort of have like a locking up sensation. So at that point I would know right away that something was off with my lash even before I attempted to start the engine. I hope you like changing out your bearings as much as I do, because we're going to be doing them all. From the wheels to the neck and even the jack shaft. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. I want you to stay. I want you to stay. I want you to stay. I want you to stay.